Assalamu alaikum. This is Gazina Hussein. We will start the program today with Quran recitation, and then we will have a lecture and a Q&A. So now I would like to invite Brother Muhammad Jawad to come and recite Quran for us for 15 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum everybody and تقبل الله عملكم جميعا.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Inshallah, I will recite Surah Araf, Ayah 88. Inshallah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الملأ الذين استكبروا من قومه لنخرجنك يا شعيب والذين آمنوا معك من قريتنا أو لتعودن في ملتنا قال أولو كنا كارهين قد افترينا على الله كذبا إن عدنا في ملتكم بعد إذ نجانا الله منها وما يكون لنا أن نعود فيها إلا أن يشاء الله ربنا وسع ربنا كل شيء علما على الله توكلنا ربنا افتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. وقال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه لئن اتبعتم شعيبا إنكم إذا لخاسرون فأخذتهم الرجفة فأصبحوا في دارهم جاثمين. الذين كذبوا شعيبا كأن لم يغنوا فيها الذين كذبوا شعيبا كانوا هم الخاسرين. فتولى عنهم وقال يا قوم لقد أبلغتكم رسالات ربي ونصحت لكم فكيف آسى على قوم كافرين. وما أرسلنا في قرية من نبي إلا أخذنا أهلها بالبأساء والضراء لعلهم يضرعون ثم بدلنا مكان السيئة الحسنة حتى عفوا وقالوا قد مس آباءنا الضراء والسراء فأخذناهم بغتة وهم لا يشعرون. ولو أن أهل القرى آمنوا واتقوا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض ولكن كذبوا فأخذناهم بما كانوا يكسبون. أفأمن أهل القرى أن يأتيهم بأسنا بياتا وهم نائمون أوأمن أهل القرى أن يأتيهم بأسنا ضحى وهم يلعبون أفأمنوا مكر الله فلا يأمن مكر الله إلا القوم الخاسرون أولم يهد للذين يرثون الأرض من بعد أهلها أن لو نشاء أصبناهم بذنوبهم ونطبع على قلوبهم فهم لا يسمعون تلك القرى نقص عليك من أنبائها ولقد جاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات فما كانوا ليؤمنوا بما كذبوا من قبل كذلك يطبع الله على قلوب الكافرين وما وجدنا لأكثرهم من عهد وإن وجدنا أكثرهم لفاسقين ثم بعثنا من بعدهم موسى بآياتنا إلى فرعون وملئه فظلموا بها فانظر كيف كان عاقبة المفسدين وقال موسى يا فرعون إني رسول من رب العالمين حقيق على أن لا أقول على الله إلا الحق حقيق على ألا أقول على الله إلا الحق قد جئتكم ببينة من ربكم فأرسل معي بني إسرائيل قال إن كنت جئت بآية فأت بها إن كنت من الصادقين فألقى عصاه فإذا هي ثعبان مبين ونزع يده فإذا هي بيضاء للناظرين قال الملأ من قوم فرعون إن هذا لساحر عليم يريد أن يخرجكم من أرضكم فماذا تأمرون قالوا أرجه وأخاه وأرسل في المدائن حاشرين يأتوك بكل ساحر عليم وجاء السحرة فرعون قالوا إن لنا لأجرا إن كنا نحن الغالبين قال نعم وإنكم لمن المقربين قالوا يا موسى إما أن تلقي وإما أن نكون نحن الملقين قال ألقوا فلما ألقوا سحروا أعين الناس واسترهبوهم وجاءوا بسحر عظيم وأوحينا إلى موسى أن ألق عصاك فإذا هي تلقف ما يأفكون فوقع الحق وبطل ما كانوا يعملون فغلبوا هنالك وانقلبوا صاغرين وألقي السحرة ساجدين قالوا آمنا برب العالمين رب موسى وهارون قال فرعون آمنتم به قبل أن آذن لكم إن هذا لمكر مكرتموه في المدينة لتخرجوا منها أهلها فسوف تعلمون لأقطعن أيديكم وأرجلكم من خلاف ثم لأصلبنكم أجمعين قالوا إنا إلى ربنا منقلبون وما تنقم منا إلا أن آمنا بآيات ربنا لما جاءتنا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين وقال الملأ من قوم فرعون أتذر موسى وقومه ليفسدوا في الأرض ويذرك وآلهتك قال سنقتل أبناءهم ونستحيي نساءهم وإنا فوقهم قاهرون قال موسى لقومه استعينوا بالله واصبروا إن الأرض لله يورثها من يشاء من عباده والعاقبة للمتقين قالوا أوذينا من قبل أن تأتينا ومن بعد ما جئتنا قال عسى ربكم أن يهلك عدوكم ويستخلفكم في الأرض فينظر كيف تعملون ولقد أخذنا آل فرعون بالسنين ونقص من الثمرات لعلهم يذكرون فإذا جاءتهم الحسنة قالوا لنا هذه فإذا جاءتهم الحسنة قالوا لنا هذه وإن تصبهم سيئة يطيروا بموسى ومن معه ألا إنما طائرهم عند الله ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون وقالوا مهما تأتنا به من آية لتسحرنا بها فما نحن لك بمؤمنين فأرسلنا عليهم الطوفان والجراد والقمل والضفادع والدم آيات مفصلات فاستكبروا وكانوا قوما مجرمين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you so much for that recitation of the Quran. Now we're going to move into 30 minutes of lecture with Sister Maryam Muadil, who was actually raised in America and graduated from university with an accounting degree. After teaching at an Islamic school, she moved to Qom in the year 2014, and she has been studying in the Hawza ever since and has focused her studies on Islamic philosophy. She's worked a great deal with children, teenagers, and youth. And today the topic will be wisdom from Imam Ali alayhi salam for uncertain times. So we're going to have a lecture for 30 minutes and then we'll follow that with Q&A for 15 minutes. So if anyone has any questions on the material said throughout the presentation, please feel free to message any of the hosts for this event, which is the Apps Network main account, and then Brother Muhammad Raza, Brother Muhammad Jawad, or me. So if we can begin and invite Sister Maryam with a loud salawat, that would be great. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Is she online? Yes.
Hey, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Let's see if I can. Okay, share my screen. Alright. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu wassalatu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay, so for today's lecture, I wanted to share a part of the khutbah of Imam Ali about it's part of a khutbah. It's the khutbah 114 from the Nahj al-Balagha, and it's part of the sermon. So I was just going to share the first two lines about it, and it kind of relates to the situation we are in. And so I thought it could be helpful and useful for people to look over it, and understand this part of the the sermon. So so أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Imam Ali starts with Alhamdulillahi wasil alhamdi bin ni'am wa ni'am bishukr. So wait, I am. Okay, so this is the first slide. So the translation is praise to be him who makes praise followed by bounty and bounty followed by greatness. So in this part of the ceremony, Imam Ali is starting out with hamd. Now, in today's world, in our Islamic world, we typically start, as I just did as well, with hamd, with praise. And whenever we want to start, a lecture, anything we're doing, we typically start with hamd, and it's become a formality. But when the Imam talks about, when he starts out with hamd, it's not just for him a formality. It's actually it's based on what he understands and what he sees in the world. Now, hamd is a viewpoint, it's a perspective of how we see life. It's like saying, wow, this is amazing. It's like, if I don't know if maybe some of you guys have been to the Grand Canyon, if you see it, you're like, wow, this is amazing. So it's being in awe, it's being in amazement. And so the Imam starts with hamd. Alhamdulillah. Why? He says that I praise Allah for the system. For why? What does he see in the system? Who he is, wasil alhamd bin ni'am, that he is he connects hamd with ni'am. Now, hamd, we said that it's a perspective, it is an amazement, is praising, it means praise, right? So it says he connects, Allah is the one, his praise is worthy. Why? Because his praise is, he connects his praise bil ni'am with the blessings. Ni'am means blessings. So he's saying that first you need to be able to see something, you need to have a proper perspective in order to see the blessings that he has given us. Now, an example in history, which is quite well known, that has the opposite perspective, is Shaitan. So in the story of Shaitan, we'll see that when Allah asks the angels to bow down to Adam, we see that Shaitan doesn't do this. And now, why is it? One of the reasons that has been said that he doesn't do that is that Shaitan, when he looks at Adam, the first thing he sees is his weakness. The first thing he sees is that he's made out of clay, the weak part of Adam. He doesn't see his ruh, he doesn't see his spirit, he doesn't see his immaterial soul. He sees that the fact that he's made out of the dunya, the clay, the dirt, and that's one of the reasons. That's one of the things that led him to kufr, is that instead of saying the half of the cup full, he sees the half of the cup empty. He sees the weak part. And there's a story of one of my teachers that he was saying that he had started to work as an editor, and and you know, when you're working as an editor for books, you tend to have to see, like, you have to catch all the mistakes. And after some time working, he realized that his eyes have gotten good at finding mistakes, and because of that he actually came out of it. He stopped doing it because he realized, like, this is a problem. This is a khaslat, a characteristic of shaitan, to be able to see, like, the weaknesses in other people and in the world. So that's why it's really important to be able to have that perspective of seeing the positive, the greatness, the goodness, the you know, to see blessings within our lives, and with each and every one of our lives. So as we said, this perspective leads to blessings and bounties. Okay. Now, one of the things that I know it's gotten quite common in today's day and age is these secular gratitude journals. If you go to Barnes and Nobles or pretty much any bookstore nowadays, you can find them where they will ask you to write, like, it's a journal, and then, you know, they will, like, it's like on every day. It's like, what do you feel gratitude towards, like, why are you what are you grateful for? And it's a secular practice. Now, these gratitude journals, they're a good first step. Now, it's a good practice to recognize your blessing, as what is Imam Adi is saying, "Wasil alhamd bin ni'am," to be able to see the blessings, to be able to see the ni'mat, the what Allah has blessed us with. But the problem is, it doesn't take the second step. It makes us realize what we have in terms of blessing, but it doesn't take the next step, in which is the continuation of what Imam Mahdi is saying. And so in if you know a little bit of Arabic, you know that one ni'ma bishuk, as you know, is up there. This is atf, so it means alhamdulillah wasi alhamd bin ni'am wa alhamdulillah wasi lil ni'am bishuk, meaning that thank Allah, praise Allah for his for he has connected praise to blessings, and for praise Allah for he has connected blessings to shukr, to recognition of the bestower of the blessings. Now, this is the second step that these gratitude journals don't mention, and it's connecting the blessing to the bestower of the blesser, meaning that we have to be able to see, after we've recognized the blessing, we need to recognize the giver of the blessing, the creator of the blessing, the one who's given us these blessings. And if we and this will, you know, and this will make us realize that the world is a manifestation of Allah's attributes, that if we have rizq, if we have sustenance, it is bestowed upon us by the giver of sustenance. If we are the Malik, if we are the owner of something, if we are the owner of a house, a car, it is bestowed us by the Malik of the world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So each and every one of these things that we are given is a reflection of his attributes, and recognition of the giver of that blessing is what the whole point of receiving those blessings are. Now, if you look at du'as from coming from the Ahlul-Bayt, you'll see that most du'as will start with hamd. They do start with praise. They're like, if you look at Dua Nutbah, Dua Komel, they always start with praise. Now you might, you know, wonder, like, why? Like, and I wanted to give this little story. I remember once I was with my grandfather and we were in Iran, and we I think we were traveling, if I'm not mistaken, and we walk into this random little ice cream shop. And he walks in there, and the first thing he turns around and says is, "I've heard you have great ice cream." And I was just stunned, because we walked into some random store. We didn't even had no idea, you know, where we're walking to, if it has good ice cream or not. And he starts out with praising the man for the ice cream, the great ice cream he has. And by the end of our visit to that ice cream shop, the ice cream shop owner, had given a bunch of free things to my grandfather. And so it really showed me that how powerful the gesture of praising is that when you're grateful to someone and you start off addressing the person or the being with that itself will give them more want to grant you more. So what happens is that when we start our du'as with hamd, with gratitude, it will increase our blessings. So that's important to recognize when we are doing du'as. If we aren't just going to be doing a random du'a for ourselves, like, we should try to start with hamd, with praising Allah. Okay, and then this is the second part of the second line. So it says نحمده على آلائه كما نحمد على بلائه. We praise him for his bounties as we do for his trials. So as we know, like, there's certain times in our life that we are more in comfort, we're more in ease. Alai, that's what alai means. And in certain times in our life, we deal with bala, we deal with discomfort, difficulty, things like earthquakes, hurricanes, this pandemic, for example. These are considered as bala. Now, the Imam is saying that the same way I praise Allah during the time of comfort, ease, ala, I praise Him during the time of difficulty. Now, so now the question arises, well, why, first of all, why do bala happens? Why do things that we dislike happen? There's three reasons that Ayatollah Tahriri says in his book. He says that one is to purify ourselves, so that especially for believers, this is very true, is that Allah wants them to get closer to himself. He wants the believers, the mu'mineen, to get closer to him. And so hardships can really build a person. So that's the first reason. Second reason is, and sometimes this happens, is that sometimes we do a misdeed, and as a form, and it's a way that Allah punishes us. But the point of Him giving us that bala, that hardship, isn't to just punish it. It's to remind us of the mistake we've done. It is for that we turn to Allah, we repent, and it's a wake up call in a sense, where Allah wants us to turn to Him, and so it's a form of purification. So the point of that, even when it's a punishment, it's for us to turn to Allah in this dunya before we go to the akhirah. And third, sometimes it's because Allah takes away a blessing to make us realize that that was a blessing. Now, for example, in this pandemic, like before, we used to be able to go out very easily and shop, socialize, do a lot of things. But right now, we can't do those things. And I think a lot of us had taken those things for granted, and we didn't realize that they were all blessings, that this is something that Allah had given us. And now that it's taken away from us, it's like, oh wow, like, I didn't realize how important it was that we had time to socialize, that we had time with family, with friends, with dog gatherings and all of that. Okay, so now, why is it that the question arises, well, why is it the Imam is willing to praise Allah in both situations, whether it be in a good situation or a bad situation? The Imam knows that regardless of it being something that we like or we dislike, Allah will never will anything but that it's good for him or her. And we have a hadith about this where the Imams of Ahlul-Bayt have told us that there's nothing that Allah wills except good for a believer. And we see that, like, and as the Imam knows, and as we know, Allah is all wise, He's Hakim, He's knowledgeable, He's Alim. He knows every in and out of us. He knows what is best from us. He's the one who's created us. He's the one who's given us our soul. He's the one who's given us all the blessings that we have. He's the one who's given us health, well-being, wealth. He is the one who's given us friends. He's the one who has given us anything we can think of. He's the one who's made the day bright so we can go after sustenance, rizq. And he's the one who's created the night so that we can sleep and we can rest. And he's done this all of these things out of hikmat, his wisdom, and that which is best from us. So even in the times of bala, like the Imam knows that what is come upon him is khair, it's good for him. That's why the Imam will praise Allah the same way, and that's what the line is saying. And I want to give a practical example sometimes, because I know this is a big it could be a little bit hard for us to swallow such a thing, because we typically as human beings, we don't like difficult, we don't like bala. And a good example I can give is around believe it was 6-7 years ago, my brother passed away. And for me, that was the most difficult time in my life. It was all of a sudden, we didn't have any we didn't know like this would happen. And it was it was a huge shock. I mean, the police came to our door one night, told us he had passed away. And I remember that moment that we found out. It was, I think we all of us broke internally. And it from the time that we were told that he had passed away, all the way to when we buried him, like it was the most difficult moments of my life personally. And it really broke me into pieces. Seeing him on his deathbed, uh, when I touching him and feeling his cold body was just so difficult. And seeing him on there, for me it was like it was if I saw myself on there, because he was my own flesh and blood. And for me it was seeing my mom there, my dad like being in that state, my sister being in that state, because what it made me realize is that we will all eventually be on our deathbed and be in a white kafan and be cold and not be able to breathe anymore. And of course we all know that we will die, like that's something that's a given, but to actually see it in front of your own eyes, it's very, very different. So anyway, for me that was it really crushed me. Yet at the same time, as much as it was hurtful and as much it was difficult, for me it changed me for the better. And I definitely grew from it, and I definitely learned from it, and I definitely became more kinder. I definitely became you know like it taught me that life is short. Whatever relationships we have with our family, with our friends, with the community, it will be limited to a certain amount of time. So make the moments count, make every single minute count, and do the best you can, and live for Allah, because this world is short. And so I think personally for me, it changed my whole life, and it was the most difficult point of my life, but at the same time I grew from it the most. And it's when I meet people who've been through divorces, or if they lost a job, or they lost a loved one, or etc. One of the things that I will tell them is that before the incident and after the incident, have you looked into yourself, and have you realized the change that has occurred, that you grew from it, that you learned from it. And this is just on a daily basis too. Like when two people get married, or when a married couple becomes parents, they go through difficulty, and they grow as a result of it, hopefully for the better. And so when I come across people who've been through something difficult, I ask them, I'm like, have you changed, have you grown? And typically they will tell me yes. And then I realized, well, then that hardship had purpose, it had meaning, it was something that Allah put in your life so that you would grow. And so that's really important, that when we're dealing with difficulties, if you realize this trend of growth that will happen to you when something difficult happens, you realize difficulties have a purpose, that Allah's put these difficulties in your life for a reason, and that is to grow. And so you won't abhor difficulty as much. You will be able to praise Allah in the same manner as when in ease. And so this is what the Imam is saying in the line. And so what I wanted to end with was that in what we're dealing with today, in this global pandemic, is a bala, right? It's a form of bala. We've lost a lot of the blessings we had, and especially right now, being during Ramadan, like I think we all are missing, the community iftars, the Jamaat prayers, the du'as, seeing our brothers and sisters at the masjid, and et cetera, et cetera. Like we've lost all of that, and I think that has given us an opportunity to grow closer to Him. I think one aspect, whoever I'm talking to these days, they're telling me, well, everything's slowed down, because we don't have, if a lot of people, they're working from home, and because of the slower pace of life, we have more time to think, reflect, pray, and it's in that sense it's become a blessing, because people have more time to spend with their immediate families. People have more time to recite dua, to read the Quran, to think about everything, and to see the blessings that we've taken for granted. So in a sense, this bala, it's true that it's been difficult, but in a sense it's also been an opportunity to grow closer to Him. Now it's interesting because I was I was looking at the story of Yunus, and one thing that in the story is, as you all know, that's the story of Yunus. He was a prophet of Allah, is that he preached to his people, and eventually he had asked, because they didn't listen, he asked for the adab, the punishment of Allah to happen. Now, and as you know, he leaves the town, but he had a student there amongst the people who still was there when he had left. And so the student of his tells the people to separate each and every, because the adab had were showing signs that the azab was coming. So people had realized that this is what Yunus had warned us about has come. And so his student was there and told the people that everyone separate from each other. Even husbands and wives separate from each other, children separate from each other, from their parents, and everyone be by themselves and ask Allah forgiveness. And it's said that because they did that, because they were, each and every one of them were alone, it made them in a state, more of a state of haraj. So when you're by yourself and you're lonely, you're more likely to feel the need for Allah, and you're more likely to pray, more like, you're more likely to pray harder, I'd say. And I think that's kind of what's happened right now. I remember, so when the beginning of this pandemic hit, I actually was in Mashhad with my mom, and it was interesting because I remember when we were at the Haram of Imam Rida, you know, like this was the beginning, so it was still like the whole thing was very, very new. And being at the Haram, I remember like where the Zari was, me and my mom were standing, and I could hear these ladies chant Allahumma ajil walik al-faraj, like very, very loudly, and you could hear the sense of panic and worry in their um voices, and it made me realize that like this pandemic and this what we were going through is giving that to us, this sense of need, this sense of desperation, and it's making us pray in a different way. And so that's that's one of the results of being in this state, is that we tend to go to Allah more desperately and need and realize, oh, we really need Allah to help us get through this, and help us find a way out. So I mean, this is another blessing that this pandemic has given us. So with that said, I want to end with I just want to end with that, and if there's any questions I can take as well.
So we did have a few questions. The first one is that What are effective ways to help soothe those who are going through especially difficult situations, especially those who are hurting? What do the Ahlul-Bayt teach us about that?
What are effective ways to go through hurting? I mean, there's different things to do. There's du'as that you can recite. We have du'as in Safiya Sajjadiyya to recite. So the question was basically, how do we go through when we are hurting, how to deal with hurt, right?
Yes.
I think it really depends on what you're going through. I mean, sometimes we're dealing with emotional trauma. And so sometimes we'll need to see a counselor. We need to see, this is very normal. Like, I mean, I know sometimes people are hesitant to see counselors, but I do think it's important. If you're dealing with depression, if you're dealing with anxiety, a lot of times we need extra help to get through it and to be able to think clearly. So doing mashwara, going to a counselor, making dua. There are duas like in the Safi Sajda during hardship, during sorrow. There are certain dhikr to say, like zikr Yunusiyya, La ilaha illa an subhanaka inni kuntu min adh-dhalimin. I remember I had a friend who, she was going through a lot, and she came to me and I told her, try reciting these duas. She's like, it's too long. So I ended up giving her dhikr Yunusiyya, which is like one line, La ilaha illa an subhanaka inni kuntu min adh-dhalimin. I just said, recite this over and over, and she did, and she felt better. So for immediate relief, I would recommend doing that, or sending salawat. If you you're in a state of worry, I would strongly recommend that. Also, and then also doing mushawarah, basically counseling. Sometimes also what's really important to pay attention to is that our body, in terms of since some things we typically overlook, is paying attention to our temperament, meaning that our body has certain needs in terms of like and stuff. And so there's 4 temperaments, as in there's 4 seasons out there. And if we if our temperament's imbalanced, that can throw our body off. So for example, if you're really stressed out, exercise will help because it will push your temperament back to balance. So I think it's also important that we pay attention to the physical aspect. So if you just pay attention to the metaphysical and not the physical aspect, it might not work. So making sure, for example, if you have low vitamin D, that can cause depression. If you have low, I don't know, vitamin B12 too, that can cause depression. So it could be, you have to figure out what the root of the problem is. And once you figure out the root of the problem, that's when you can address the problem. So I think that's the best advice I could give. So if for every person, the solution might look different depending on where's the cause coming from.
That makes a lot of sense. Does anyone else have any more questions? I'm not sure if, because there are like 3 to 4 hosts, so maybe one of the other hosts have some questions that need to be answered. So we'll just give that like 1 or 2 minutes. Until then, also, we'd like to ask all of the attendees to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, because in order to have more like advertising options and stuff, we need to have at least 100 subscribers. So if you can, please spread the word and also make sure to subscribe. Apart from that, if anyone else has any more questions, please message us directly. We'll wait 1 more minute, and then if there aren't any questions, then we will end the session here. And if you have any follow-up questions afterwards, feel free to contact us, and then we will try to get questions answered or contact with Sister Mariam. But overall, thank you so much for the informative session and for giving us your time today to educate everyone that's present. I do not think that there are any more questions, so I would like to conclude today's session at that. Thank you so much for coming. Brother Muhammad Raza, if you could read Dua Faraj for us to end the session, if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. With that, I would actually like to end the session. Have a great day, and we hope to see you at our next event. Thank you.